It started, as humiliation often does, in front of a crowd that barely knows you, and worse, a few that know you too well. The studio air tasted of dust from charcoal, the metallic tang of coffee left too long on a burner. My drawing spatters, cross-sections, site plans, renderings were pinned to the battered corkboard inside room 42A. It was the last critique before portfolios, and most of us hovered between hope and exhaustion. The professor, a wiry woman with clicked vowels and a gaze like cold glass, circled slowly in front of the pinup, tilting her head. "This concept," she started, voice slicing through the caffeine haze, "is convoluted." She fingered the renderings as if they might stain her white linen sleeves. My hands prickled with sweat. An elevated park spreading over the S-Bahn tracks. It covers a kilometer. Laughter flickered near the windows. Your sky path would cost millions, maybe billions. And for what? Grass on top of trains? Berlin does not need another architectural ego trip, Herr Mahler. They snickered, some openly. Lars Schmidt snorted, leaning back to flash perfect teeth, and Ingrid said loudly to the girl beside her, "Why not just build a glass dome of all of Kreuzberg, too?" Murmurs rolled in waves behind her. My throat tightened. Not even my family had seen the models yet. They insisted I was wasting time on cartoons, not real work. The professor's mouth thinned. She said, "Reasonable, contextual projects are what we need. Urban fantasy is indulgence. Unless you plan to pay for it yourself?" The embarrassment heated my ears, burning a path over my cheekbones. I fumbled with my pointer, feeling adrift. The words I'd rehearsed all week evaporated. "It's meant to reconnect neighborhoods divided by the train lines," I managed, my voice thinner than I liked. "To carry green space." Yes, lofty ideas," she cut in. "But in Berlin, we address real problems with real solutions." By the time I unpinned my work, I barely felt my fingers. My stuff clattered into the cardboard portfolio. I tried not to see the mixture of pity, relief, and schadenfreude blending in my classmates' faces. On the way home, the U-Bahn's orange plastic seats felt cold through my jeans, and the sickly reek of fried onions from someone's doner kebab clung to the air. The city blurred behind rain-streaked windows. I watched unknown faces reflect in the glass, some bored, some troubled, none caring what happened to a boy with wild plans. Berlin belonged to those who moved through the crowds, not above them. My parents' apartment in Marzahn loomed above the gray courtyards, panels of concrete, light dulled by layers of grime. The old man was home early, reading the Berliner Zeitung at the kitchen table. My mother stirred soup, the scent of leeks heavy in the air. My drawings went, as always, under my arm, as if by hiding them I could protect them from ridicule. "Well," my mother asked, "did your teacher finally praise you? Maybe you can enter something practical like Wirklichkeitsarchitektur, real work." "Not today," I said, dropping my bag in the hall. My father barely glanced up. "Dreams are fine, if you wake up and do what's possible." I remember the scrape of his spoon against the ceramic, more steady than any parent's comfort. I spent that night shredding the crit sheets, balling them into the bin. I lay awake listening to the S-Bahn gliding in the distance, its whine filtering through the kitchen vent, and felt small, like a leaf swept by city wind. Even my sister's voice, always quick to tease, gentle only when no one was watching, offered no comfort. "You can't fix Berlin by floating gardens over trains," she'd said. "Why do you need so much?" I didn't answer. My own faith felt as insubstantial as breath on glass. The studio doesn't remember the quiet ones. After that last critique, I showed up less, lingered in back alleys of doubt. Applications came and went. I found a joyless job modeling generic facades for a property developer in Midi. Row after row of boxy high-rises, every local so interchangeable I stopped checking the addresses. The city's pulse dulled. I spent evenings walking, tracing the lines between old train yards and empty courtyards, searching for the spot where a bridge could do something more than just connect asphalt. Sometimes in sleepless moments, I unfolded the old skypath sketches, running my thumb over graphite smudges, their edges blurred with longing. Years bled by, friendships scattered. Some from that studio were already published, lecturing to junior classes. Others disappeared into city agencies. I watched, grimly curious. Family gatherings remained tense. My father's career in municipal plumbing was a reliable topic, and my failed competitions, my lost bids on minor renovations, my unmarketable visions were someone's punchline. Then, in those lean days after 30, I saw the notice. The city's Department for Urban Greenery was piloting initiatives to reintegrate fractured communities. Someone had pushed, after years of climate activism, droughts, and citizen councils. These tendrils had finally broken through the budget spreadsheet. They wanted proposals for a signature reconnection project. The city would back one idea, fund it, set it in motion. I almost didn't submit. Berlin's streets had taught me to distrust hope. I spent 3 nights awake in the borrowed attic of a friend's Kreuzberg flat, my laptop glowing beside old blueprints, phone open to news of other competitions I hadn't won. But in the end, I sent it, reworked, updated. Cleaner lines, sharper focus. Skypath became Grüne Brücke, Green Bridge. Still a kilometer, still stretching over the S-Bahn, but now rooted in community gardens, energy-neutral lighting, rainwater harvesters, playgrounds. I gave it less poetry, more pipes. That season was one long shade of waiting. Emails checking finalist status. Coffee gone cold as I argued with clients over window placement, a side job. Then the letter came. No, an actual envelope, city logo embossed. I ran my thumb along the flap. Hesitated, afraid of the word unfortunately. But it said selected. Not a dream, not a sketch, selected. I called no one at first. I sat in the orange light of my cold kitchen, letters spread before me, trembling. For a moment, I fumbled with my phone, then remembered each comment, he'll never build anything real. And silence seemed safer. I slept with the letter on the table, afraid it would vanish. The process was a glacial slog, community approvals, engineering reviews, more meetings than I could count. The city was a labyrinth of bureaucracy, every step a negotiation. I wore out 2 pairs of shoes, walking between contractors' offices and neighborhood centers. The second year, a journalist from Der Tagesspiegel called, and suddenly the concept had a hashtag. Debates spun in cafes. Some called it waste, others an emblem. All of them had opinions. Construction began while winter crouched over Berlin, streets dusted with frozen grit. Every aspect required compromise. The original sweeping garden shrank. The play areas took the place of some terraces. Still, I clung to what mattered. A passage over the divided line. A breathing space above the machine grind. 3 years in, and the project began to rise. The concrete supports emerging like pale ribs from the city's scars. I'd visit the site late at night, neon vests licking in the wind, hands braced on scaffolding, breath clouding in the floodlight. Sometimes I wondered what I was proving and to whom. The press wanted to make a symbol out of it. On opening day, as I stood beside city officials, spotlights glaring, crowds pressed against the fences, I felt not triumphant, just hollow and disbelieving. They called me visionary architect. I watched children run screaming along the path, their voices warping among the young trees, and understood nothing. My hands only stopped shaking when one old woman, leaning on her cane, whispered, "Danke." I haven't walked to Friedrichshain this easily in years. It was enough for that minute. But the return, truly returning, came months later after the headlines dwindled. With the spring came invitations, even from those who had once been ready to bury me in scorn. My mother told me the community wanted to see me, and my father, surprisingly, sent an awkward text. "Neighbors say your bridge is in the papers. Maybe you could show us?" I dreaded that confrontation. Too many years had built walls between us, brick by brick of silent disappointment and stray jibes. Still, the day arrived, sky clouded, air full of wet earth and lily of the valley as I crossed Marzahns gray plazas. The city had hung my portrait beside the project site. My old neighborhood was not glossy. Patches of peeling paint, families crowding the tram stop, old women haggling over spring onions piled on crates. As I reached our apartment block, slabs of faded concrete, the familiar smells rose: cabbage, cigarettes, laundry. My sister